Hello, hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. James here, as ever, for today's ACCA SBR examination, where myself and Betsy are going to walk and talk you through how to pass it with 63, first time, and also, just for the fun of it, doing your ACCA SBR exam with another ACCA exam. Well, we have the right lady with us today who's going to walk and talk us through all of her top student tips when she passed the ACCA SBR exam. So without any further ado, Betsy, feel free to introduce yourself, my friend.
Okay, hi James. Thanks for having me, and hi everyone. Thanks for having me as well. My name is Betsy Ojiofuibu. I'm a member of the ACCA, which is kind of why we are here today. I want to give you guys tips for how to pass your SBR. And if you're like me, who had to, I'll use the word had to, take it with another paper, then of course this will be very helpful to you because it will kind of help you to kind of be an efficient student, right? Like little time, but you still want to max out of it. You still want to pass it, then please keep watching. We have to.
Absolutely spot on there, Betsy. Well, what I've done is I've put all of your details in the description below so students can check out all of your fantastic content on there. And of course, you'll be showing off your certificate just behind you for the video on there. So make sure you've got a pen and paper, guys, to take down all the key notes that we're going to walk and talk through as to if we had to go do the exam again, what would we be doing, what would we be thinking, how we approach it on there. But Betsy, what's the first thing that comes to mind if you had to do SBR again and pass it first time? How would you go about it?
Okay. So let's go to what I think I would do again, and then I'll talk about what I think I could do differently to be able to get maxed out on the exam, like I always say. Okay, so for what I'll do again, like James had said earlier, I took this paper with another paper. Now the other paper I took it with was the AAA, that's the Advanced Audit and Assurance paper. At the time as well, I was still in audit, like I was working in the Big Four. So it was just kind of the good blend, between the SBR, which more or less tests financial reporting, advanced financial reporting, if you like, and of course the audit, which already, more like ISAs, right? The International Standards of Auditing being tested at the same time. So I guess it was just kind of easy, if I want to use the word easy, to blend both papers. They have similar standards being tested. Of course, the reporting side of it, auditing side of it. So yeah, it was a good mix for me. So that's something I would do again. If I still had to take both papers at the same time, I would choose audit. It was a good mix. I enjoyed studying for them both together. Now, for what I would probably do differently, I would take my ethics module. Yes, I didn't do my ethics module before SBR or even before any papers. I took it like literally when I was done with my papers, but that's something I would do differently. I'll try to do it before because I know that SBR tests a lot of, ethics, just kind of here and there in between the questions. So of course, having the ethics module done and dusted would kind of mean that you showing up prepared, and you wouldn't even have to brush through ethics because you already know it, right? So you just literally go in and have a quick and easy sail through the paper. So that's something I would do differently. Of course, there's several other things I would do, but of course we'll get to that at different points of our video. Yeah.
Well, that's already a first mega point down there. Ethics and professional skills module links into advanced audit assurance. I mean, you had to do it two together because of the 7-year rule. Otherwise, you would have had to have gone and retook them again. But would you recommend for a student to just do SBR and then move on to advanced audit assurance?
Well, I mean, right, it's all about you and your capacity. So which is why kind of when I'm talking to students, like, right now mentoring people or something like that, I always try to say, what are you able to do? For some people, to give it the level of seriousness that the exam requires, if they have 2 papers, they know that they have an exam coming. For other people, they feel like, oh yeah, I'll just put in a night there or here. So I guess what I would just say is really it's about you, right? If you do not have to take 2 papers at once, never feel pressured to, take one after the other. I mean, it makes more sense to even actually already know your standards for the SBR, then go on to audit them, right? Yeah, so that's kind of the logical flow. Even if you were, an auditor, you would obviously have to know your standards before you can even talk about auditing them, right? Using the ISAs. So yeah, so I would just say, take your SBR paper alone, except again, you have to maybe the 2-year rule, the 7-year rule that kind of crunches us up to complete our strategic papers, or something else could be a reason for having to struggle and take all your papers together. Again, boils down to capacity, so do not do more than you have to. Yeah.
Exactly. Good thing to get the ball rolling on that. But then let's get on to the exam itself on there then. What sort of floods back into your mind now? if you had to go and sit it next month, what would you do the same in your preparation? What would you change?
Okay, for my preparation, what I did then was, again, before I take any paper even, I like to know the syllabus. ACCA is an exam that has been here for a while, so I would say it's quite easy to know what they're going to be testing, because you have several past papers available to you. You have the syllabus, which is extensively written, developed, kind of structured, tells you what to expect, how many hours even the paper is going to last for, and how much marks will be allotted, for instance, to ethics vis-a-vis consolidations, or even the accounting standards themselves. So it was helpful for me to go through the syllabus. So I had the syllabus, I literally had it printed out, because I was self-studying at the time as well, which is another thing that I would just say, by the way. Some people might be using a tutorial center, some other people might be self-studying. Regardless of what you're doing, you want to know the syllabus for yourself. You don't want to leave it to your tutorial, what's the word now, teachers, or those who kind of provide you that support. You want to know it for yourself, right? So how can you easily know this, right? These are always in the resources. ACCA student website is available. You can literally download this on your own, literally understand what will be tested, how many standards feed into the SBR, because not every standard might be examinable at SBR level. So you want to know which ones to really give your focus to. So that's something I did, right? Of course, I studied with a study text. I think, I'm not sure which it was. Actually, either one is fine, Kaplan, BPP, whatever it is. Yeah, so I think I used one of them at that time. Of course, I read through my text. I would recommend this for SBR, because a lot of people might think it's a waste of time, right? You want to go quickly use maybe a summarized note. Honestly, when it comes to the standards, well, if you want to practice accounting, you kind of need to know this stuff, right? So which is why I would always say, go through the text by yourself. Again, enjoy reading this thing, because honestly, you're going to need it, right? Even in your practice. So I would say, for a paper like SBR, it is super crucial to who we are, really, even as accountants. So you want to know it, right, for yourself. Go through each of the texts, and of course, take down notes as you go.
Definitely.
These I will always prioritize. The standards alone, like each standard on its own, has a lot of scope to it, has a lot of details, different kind of things, recognition requirements, measurement, principles. So of course, there are several of them. We already know what these standards are, but it will be helpful to you if you have some kind of flashcards or some kind of notes where you're making important points that would help you when you're now much closer to the exam, and you remember, okay, what does IAS 10 say, or what does IAS 8 say, or what does IFRS 15 say? At that point, you don't want to have all the several examples in your head. You just want a couple of principles that you can expand on when you're in the exam hall. So of course, that's something else that I highly recommend students.
Yes, and putting it into your own words as well, I think is going to be really helpful, so that you can read through those little flashcards the night before the examination, and then it will sort of digest a lot easier on there. And to add, remember, this is a jump up. So it's financial reporting, then you go on to SBR. So maybe if you've just passed financial reporting 50, 51, 55, I would highly recommend you check out those free resources, as Betsy said. Really, really good, along with the technical articles. But if you've not done financial reporting in a long time, head over to those articles as well. They'll definitely help you out.
Yes. If it's been a while, because a couple of people as well, I think I've had to reply a couple of comments on my previous videos. People say things like, "Oh, it's been so long." Like all the standards, some of them may have even changed over the time that some people have had to take these papers, right? We're talking like maybe an IAS 18 moving to IFRS 15. So that's they changed the revenue standard, and now there are some 5-step approach to revenue and all of that, and you can't relate in quotes to all of this anymore. But you still have to take the papers. So this is where going back to brush up on previous standards, again, like I said, from the syllabus, you can easily know, right? So go back there, see what are those standards that have maybe recently changed. The technical articles will help you most times draw attention to those standards. Look at it like something you kind of have to know. It's something that's easier to know when you need it, right? So just understanding it from that angle and taking your time to brush through those standards, putting them in your own words, if that would obviously help you. If I give you my notes, it may not be as helpful to you. You might not even know why I wrote something down. So it's important to make it your own, right? Yeah. And of course, look at the framework too. That's another point I would like to say. A lot of us kind of just jump to where the standards start, and of course the consolidation, but even understanding the conceptual framework as it is, like exactly what is being called an asset these days. A lot of people who studied accounting in the old times will think ownership, right? That's asset. But now we're talking control, we're talking even the lease standard is kind of, has been altered to reflect that, right? So all of this you can only know when you use the research.
Exactly. And it's just the terms that you use for it, how you relay it as well on there. And also you might get some questions based on the new technical article update. So you could have on potentially cryptocurrency assets on there, leases is another one, but it's all about, and this is one of the key notes to get down if you're taking notes from the video, is here's the standard, here's the scenario, apply it to the scenario on there and say, is this correct? Is this incorrect? What have we overstated, understated? And this is what the marker is looking for you to demonstrate in your work.
Yeah, I agree with that, James. And another thing I was also going to say is, the fact that you have several standards to understand, and knowing that you cannot be tested on every single standard in that one, exam that you'll be going for. I find that some students want to can I spot what standard will be tested next or something like that? I would really advise not to do this, because how possibly can you know what will be tested and what would not be tested? It's going to be difficult, right? So this is why I'm saying sometimes it's just an idea, literally like an idea of the standard, so that when they mention it, you don't just go blank, like, oh my God, what is that standard? Like you can't even remember anything around it. Maybe, for instance, testing related parties, and you're like, oh my gosh, who tests related parties? Like, I don't even remember what IS-24 says or whatever it is. But imagine if you had an idea, just a little idea, and then you see a 10-mark question. Now, of course, you're probably not going to get all the 10 marks since it's not one of your strong standards, but you would have enough to just get at least half the marks, for instance, and that's how you get 50. Just literally mark here, or 60% of the marks here and there, and of course of course consolidating all of that to getting your 50 marks at the end of the day. So so that's something I would highly recommend students to do. Cut across all the standards, don't pick and choose. There's no point. This is not some kind of betting game where you want which will be tested or not. Nah, just give it your best shot for all of that.
And to add to that, I think you're absolutely spot on, Betsy, on there, is pick up on the easy marks, or some people call it the low-hanging fruit on there, as to there are just easy marks for demonstrating your knowledge, applying it to the scenario, and saying potentially about how we value inventory, and then saying, right, what inventory have we got in the scenario on there? Right, we've got product A, B, and C, and it's valued at this. And then you're starting to show your workings, working it through methodically on there. All these things, along with you've got to be doing practice on the CBE platform, the computer-based examination platform. Definitely. 2-time as well. I mean, is it all sort of flooding back when I mentioned this, Betsy? Was it a time-pressured exam for you? How did it go?
Oh my goodness, yes, of course. SBR, well, I guess even, this applies to most of ACCA papers. I don't think there are just probably a few people who leave an ACCA paper with like time left on the table. Half the time you're like, oh, rushing off to get it done, right? Yeah, so it was a time-pressured exam because, again, let's not forget the consolidation part of these papers. Like, so I don't know, you could be asked to calculate goodwill for, a company or whatever it is. And then, of course, explain your calculation or some kind of NCI, that's non-controlling interest kind of involvement, whatever it is. So, of course, all of that part of it, like the technical, in quote, calculation part of it is there. You are having to, calculate and explain what you've calculated. Now, assuming they kind of even make it much more difficult by bringing in some kind of share for share exchange, deferred consideration, all of this can make it really, oh my gosh, what is this again? Oh, okay, maybe it's a cash flow even, something else. It's like several ways, right? Which is why, again, I'm saying, even in your preparation, it's important for you to time yourself while preparing for this exam. This is like literally when you're studying on your table. Plan it. Know that, okay, there's the console part of this exam, and I'll be asked to consolidate any kind of, different ways consolidation can come. We can't even exhaust it in this video, talking about the different scenarios of it. But the principles are key, right? Understanding how to calculate your goodwill will always be helpful to you for a paper like SBR. So in your planning, please allocate time to understanding this particular segment of the syllabus. Then, of course, for your different standards as well, you go across. Now, when you're in the exam, the same time allotment comes in, because you want to allot the time based on the marks that are provided for the paper. So you don't want to spend time on a 10-mark question, for instance. If you still have like a 30-mark consolidation question waiting for you, except of course you know nothing. That's where you can say, okay, well, I'll waste it anyway if I went there. But assuming you kind of had a good read before you came for the exam, then you want to give as much time to your explanations, do a bit of computation. Most times it's the extracts, right? You'll be asked to produce. You rarely ever be asked to like literally prepare the entire statement of financial position or something like that. So please don't waste time doing that, right? If you ask for an extract, give an extract. Don't give anything more. If you ask to just compute the goodwill, go straight to the good. No need to explain what goodwill is or whatever. Just go straight to what you asked and literally give your explanation. So simply move to the next part of it, and I kind of think you guys will be fine.
Definitely. You're absolutely spot on. And to add to that, what I used to do in my examinations, especially for the first question on the SBR exam, it's so big on there, and you could be tested on so much. Have a look at some of the past papers just on the question one. Don't really read it or anything like that. Just go to the actual mark scheme, and you'll be surprised how many 1 or half marks are actually allocated on there. And then just read it through and go, oh my word, a third of these are actually quite easy to pick up on. Whereas I'm getting so worked up on going for the mega detail of the scenario or of the standard on there, which I feel really helped me pass.
Exactly. I mean, you want to always read the examiner's comments as well. I recommend doing that even while you prepare, because it's the easiest way to know what not to do. Like, because they'll always say students were, possibly doing this when they should have been doing that. So that's like just helps you not to make the same mistakes in your own paper, right? And of course, like he said, looking at the marking scheme would also tell you the little computation here and there, or even explanations that could just help you, at least grab 10, 15, or even a 20 out of the 30 marks allotted, for instance, to question one. Yeah,
exactly. And be prepared. You mentioned it before as well, Betsy. I thought it was really good as to, please don't think it's just calculate me some figures and that is it. You have to communicate what is the impact of that. So the real exam technique there is when you're calculating, show all your workings line by line. And I always got taught as to, right, you've got to relay your answer, James, as if you were marking it yourself, because the markers are going to go through hundreds of papers. So if they look at yours and go, oh my word, this is very methodical, line by line is going through, they've told me what it's about. And then paragraphs at the bottom, if it was maybe an 8-mark question, that's probably going to be 4 marks for calculations, 4 marks for explaining. So you need 4 decent points on there to have an attempt of getting at least a go at the full 8 marks for it. So little things like that come into exam technique, more past paper questions, and doing them to time on the CBE platform and doing all the specimen papers are, for me, an absolute no-brainer. It's fundamental. You'll be at a disadvantage if you didn't do that in your exam.
Yeah, SBR as a paper is the only paper I can say just practicing as many papers, past papers rather, that you can find will actually help you. I might not recommend that for an SBL, for instance, because the more you do, the more confused you might get. But for an SBR, because it's so structured, like you literally know what you'll be tested on. So there's no point avoiding past papers. In fact, you need to be able to say, oh no, I know, okay, yeah, I kind of know what this is testing, or I know like the typical examinable standards, if I can use the word. So not every, standard would come up a lot of time, but there's some standards that are so easy to examine on, for instance. So sometimes you kind of want to have those ones grounded, locked down. Then of course you can play around with the other ones just for the general knowledge of it. Then of course, like we had said earlier, looking at your technical articles can also help you draw attention to where the examiners are kind of trying to emphasize to students. Perhaps there's a new standards even in being drafted. Some kind of exposure drafts are going on and they want to bring your attention to something. A 10-mark question, like at least 90% of the time, a 10-mark question will come from those technical articles or such, recent developments in the standards or something like that. And they're usually easy, but because most students don't even touch those parts of the syllabus, or when they just go into the exam hall, they're like, oh gosh, what is this? I don't know, big data, cryptocurrency, I have no idea. Well, just literally using a couple of sentences and of course relaying it back to the case could just help be the difference, right? And how you get that 10 marks. And 10 marks is not something to joke with when all you need is 50 to crossover.
Well, this is why the SBR paper has only a 50% pass rate of students. So 1 in 2 students will fail this exam. But I think a very good question, which I can just tell a student is telling me to ask you, is if you've got to sit the exam, How many weeks before the exam would you be starting to do past paper questions? Like we've been saying, they're so paramount, James. How many weeks would you be doing before the exam to start on those past paper questions?
Okay, so now this question seems like a trick question, but I know that you didn't see me plan it that way. But why I said that is this: when it comes to SBR, I always recommend going hand in hand with your text and your revision kit.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so for instance, you're studying, let's see, what standard can I use? So you're studying IAS 8, for instance, accounting policies, changes in estimates and errors, or whatever it is, and you're preparing for an exam, right? Your exam might be in 3 months' time, that's not a problem. But today you're studying IAS 8. You have read the text, you understand what an error is, you understand what estimates are, you know what the principles are. You've read the essay part of it, but how best can you possibly test yourself? I would say do it from the revision kit, like that exact
as you're going through.
As you go through. So the revision kit is kind of structured in a way that you could just pick a past paper from maybe 4 exams ago or 4 years ago. Even that could just be the subset, like a B in an exam question on accounting estimates. So that way you already kind of did a past paper, right? However, there's still the need to sit down and do a full paper where you have like literally pick one specimen paper and say, okay, you know what, from start to finish, I want to time myself, I want to get this done. This I'll recommend you start to do at least 4 weeks, that's a month to your exam. I would say at least in your study time, set off one particular day where you say, okay, I want to be examined on this fully, put a stopwatch, whatever it is, literal exam condition kind of thing, because that would help you. I'm telling you, because half the time we think we are good at this because we're solving them in like tidbits, like, okay, I did console here, I did, but when you are like fully in attack mode, 4 weeks or even like, okay, maybe 4 to 3 weeks before the exam, I would really highly recommend you start giving yourself that exam build up, like literally call it a mock exam or whatever it is, any random one. It might even be something that you had solved individually before, like, oh, I solved the B here when I was studying the revenue standard, or I did this one when I was doing inventory, but now it's all together. Now give it a go at once. You might see that you may not be as prepared as you thought. And why I said 4 weeks is because this allows you time to self-reflect. At this point, you can say, okay, oh, something is really faulty here. I'm not so good at whatever. It could be PP&E, it could be anything. Liz is okay now. So do I need help? Can I find someone who's great at this, who can explain it to me? But if you are doing it a night before, for instance, that could only just throw you off. Oh gosh, I'm going to fail since I couldn't get this right. And you don't want to be that close to the exam.
We're not going to recommend that, are we?
Exactly.
Well, I do apologize for that trick question on there, but we've got a good yardstick now. 3 to 4 weeks, you've got to be really hitting those past paper questions. But this one's a nice, easy one as to, are there any other final SBR top tips that are in your mind that you've just got to tell a student that could be the difference in them getting the 50 plus?
Yes, I would want to emphasize the ethics part of the SBR paper. In the way it's structured, somewhere in between, they'll be testing you on the ethics. So please, it's something I want to emphasize on, because again, people think they're good at these things until they are now being asked, right there in the exam hall to come up with it, and it's like, oh my gosh, okay, what's this? You try to remember it, and it's not there anymore. So, which is why those flashcards are important. Have your ethics literally written out, just a couple of them, and then of course some kind of common, if I use the word common, SBR questions that come up in
topics,
topics, write them out there, have them there. It's very important. And again, prioritize the standards that you think are difficult for you. Yes, I will say this because if you are in a time crunch, think about this. If you're in a time crunch and you have, let's say 30 minutes for the paper to end, and you still have a couple of questions you have not attempted. Now, those questions that you are great at, like assuming a standard that you just know, like even if you are woken up from the bed and you're asked to just talk about the standard, no, you know it so much. Maybe it's IAS 10, if events after reporting period, you know it so much, right? Yeah, but if there's IFRS 9 question there that you are not so strong at, financial instruments, what would you rather spend your last 30 minutes working on? Would you want to give it to the one you know so much, or are you just gonna rather just say, okay, I failed, let's just go, I'll come back next time? No. Why I'm saying this is this: we do not all know all the standards at the same extent, right?
Level, yeah.
not so great as some. So while you're preparing, please prioritize those ones that you do not know. What this means is when you have a little time crunch left, at least the ones you know, you can always, write out your points in little as much time as you have, and you are able to cross over, right? But the ones you do not know, you're already under the pressure. So you might not remember anything and you're just already sad, like the exam is done for you. But assuming you just had a couple of points, you'll be able to easily expand them. And of course, that could just be the difference between the 47 and the 51, right? So yeah, so it's important not to love the standards you love so much and then all your time to them. Please, those standards that annoy you, those ones you do not like, give it some time just to have an idea. All you need is an idea. And of course, the case is already given to you. So as much detail as the case provides, then you can expand. So that's something I would really say, because I have some personal standards that I love. So I know that sometimes I can be skewed towards, knowing so much of them and just feeling like, no, this would not be tested. No, forget about this one. It won't be tested. You do not know that. So always have an idea of every single standard. And of course, your consolidation principles, that's already the compulsory part of how we know it's going to be tested. We know it's going to come. So you do not want to joke with your consolidation principles. Yeah.
Exactly. I think you've hit so many nails on the head there with some fantastic points, Betsy, as well. But the other fundamental, which I get loads of messages from students, is, oh, James, I failed it. And I say, well, how many marks did you attempt? And they'll say 80 or 85. Make sure you're answering. Just keep it simple. The full 100 marks, your time management, getting used to the CBE platform, all these sort of fundamentals will all add up, along with all those fantastic tips you shared today, Betsy, as well. So I've got to say, thank you so much. And all the students will be looking at your certificate from today's video going,
yeah,
that's going to be me.
I mean, look at it, it's just sitting there so beautifully. Don't you want, like, if you're watching this, I'm pretty sure you're like, I can't wait to have that. So I mean, the difference between me and you is just, hitting those marks, right? Getting those marks, getting the 50 and above. I would want you to aim for a 70. That's where once you're aiming for a 70, you can literally land maybe a 60, 61, and then, a safe way out, because you shouldn't be aiming for a 50, because that would already tell you that you would likely end in the 40s or something like that. You don't want that. Yeah.
You'll be fine. I think following the tips we've talked about in this video, the marks are only going to go one way on it. But like I said, thank you so much on there, Betsy. I've put all of your details at the bottom. So guys, make sure you subscribe to both our channels so you don't miss out on any other future videos. Be sure to give this video a like, of course, and drop Betsy a message on Instagram as well. Let us know. In fact, leave us a comment below how you get on with your SBR exam and which tips you're actually going to put into practice on there. But again, thank you so much, Betsy, for your time, your insights today. Have you enjoyed your debut on the channel?
Yes, I have, James. Thanks so much for having me. I've always watched your videos, and it's sort of kind of an honor to be here. Of course, helping the world in the little way we know how to, which is like more or less putting out content. So yeah,
you're an absolute superstar. That's very kind of you. Very kind. Obviously, I live such a glamorous life, obviously, on our zero budget channel. But in all honesty, guys, I really hope the video helps you out, and I can only say thank you so much again, Betsy, as well today. So best of luck, and we'll see you in another video. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Bye, guys. Bye, guys.
Bye.